If you ever notice a feeling of asymmetry in your body from left to right, first of all, I would encourage you not to worry about it too much. Our bodies are asymmetrical. I mean, in a general way, they're symmetrical, but if you trace the line of your jaw, or if you were to look inside at the position of the organs, we're actually not fully symmetrical. But those asymmetries can be bothersome, and sometimes they cause a little bit of dysfunction. What I want to propose to you is a way that you can play with it. It's not going to eliminate the asymmetry, but sometimes it can create an important shift. So let's imagine that one of your hip joints feels a little tight. And the joints, of course, are those spaces between the bones. So you can think of your hip joints as little spaces at the top of your legs, in the bottom of your pelvis. And if you feel your left hip joint and you feel your right hip joint, let's say the left hip joint feels a little tight. If you try to imagine the space of that hip joint, it's likely that it's going to feel smaller than the space of the right hip joint, assuming the right hip joint feels pretty good, or maybe for you it's the other way around. So let's say you're walking now. Every time you step over the right leg, that feels pretty good. There's a nice feeling that you can get tall and lengthen up away from the ground over the right leg. But when you step on the left leg, there's a sort of a sinking feeling. And that tight space in the left hip joint, it just doesn't provide the same support. What you can do now is a little trick that's called neurological diplomacy. The originator of this term was a Feldenkrais teacher, Ruthie Alon. And the idea here is you begin to imagine the feeling that's a little more like a handicap on the side where you don't have an issue. So here you would actually pretend that you had a tight right hip rather than a tight left hip. You would put your attention on your right hip and maybe imagine the space is very small. Maybe there's actually a little contraction that comes in just by imagining that. And you might walk for a while and kind of allow that, the sinking happens on the right side. Now, what's interesting is the right and the left side are always in relation to each other. So if suddenly your right hip joint that usually feels open is a little bit tighter, you might actually discover a little more space in your left hip joint. Now, I'd encourage you just to play with it and not assume that doing this, instantly changes everything. But it's a little game that you can play when you have a tightness on one side or some issue like that. And it could just free you up a little bit, give you a little more sense of agency when you have some aches and pains.